A mochi moment from Mark, who writes, I just want to thank you for making GLP-1s affordable. What would have been over $1,000 a month is just $99 a month with Mochi. Money shouldn't be a barrier to healthy weight. 3 months in, and I have smaller jeans and a bigger wallet. You're the best. Thanks, Mark. I'm Myra Ahmed, founder of Mochi Health. To find your Mochi moment, visit joinmochi.com.
Mark is a Mochi member compensated for his story.
You know that thing where you get an amazing pair of shoes at a really great price and want to tell everyone about it? Yeah, so do we. Here at Designer Shoe Warehouse, we'll give you something to brag about, like the latest styles from brands you love, or the trends everyone's obsessing over, or shoes that make you feel like, well, you. So go ahead, show off a little. Find shoes that get you at prices that get your budget. Head to your DSW store or DSW.com today. DSW, let us surprise you.
Voices for Justice is a podcast that uses adult language and discusses sensitive and potentially triggering topics, including violence, abuse, and murder. This podcast may not be appropriate for younger audiences. All parties are innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. Some names have been changed or omitted per their request or for safety purposes. Listener discretion is advised.
My name is Sarah Turney, and this is Voices for Justice. Today, I'm discussing the case of Kate Brown and Carnell Sledge. In the summer of 2019, two friends met up at a very popular park, and within 14 minutes, they were both shot and killed in broad daylight. While it's been 6 years since their murders, at the end of May 2025, their names were back in the news as investigators began looking into a murder-suicide they believe may be related. This is the case of Kate Brown and Carnell Sledge. It's just after 5 p.m. on Tuesday, June 4th, 2019, at the Rocky River Reservation in Ohio. And Tony and Caitlin Vacha are out with their kayaks, looking for a location to launch them. They find a spot and pull into an area just off one of the main roads into the park. But as they begin to approach the water, they discover the body of a man authorities would later identify as 40-year-old Carnell Sledge. He was face down in the grass next to a bench by the river, and he'd been shot in the head twice. When they take a look around, obviously trying to figure out what could have happened here, they find another person, 33-year-old Kate Brown. She's about 6 feet in front of Carnell on the bank of the river in the water. She'd been shot once in the head. It's obviously just a horrific and terrifying scene. And from the looks of it, this happened right before they got to this area, so they're understandably scared and concerned for their safety as well. Tony tells Caitlin to go to the car and call 911. She tells the operator that they're about 3 miles into the Rocky River Reservation, and that both of the people they found are definitely dead.
Cleveland Metro Parks, please. My boyfriend and I just parked to go kayaking, and it looks like there's 2 bodies that were shot. Where? We pulled into the Rocky River Reservation. We're probably maybe 3 miles in, and both these people are definitely dead.
When detectives from the Cleveland Metro Parks Police Department get to the scene, at first, they consider that maybe this was a murder-suicide. But as officials clear the area and go through the crime scene, they're able to piece together more information about how Kate and Carnell died. They don't find any weapon at the scene. Just 3 shell casings they determine came from a small caliber firearm. And these casings were found close to their bodies, indicating that whoever did this was close to them when they fired the gun. They also find blood on the back of the bench they assume Kate and Carnell were sitting on before they were killed. Eventually, they concluded that they were approached from behind. Carnell was shot in the back of the head and shot again when he fell to the ground. And it looked like Kate was trying to run. She got about 6 feet to the riverbank and was shot in the back of the head. This was a double homicide committed in broad daylight in a very heavily trafficked area. According to the FBI, the last homicide in the parks happened about 20 years earlier. While the parks weren't completely free of crime, this type of brutal killing was extremely rare for this area. So authorities and the public are taking this case very seriously. Now, Kate and Carnell are identified pretty quickly. Both of their vehicles were found in the parking lot about 100 feet from where they were found. In Kate's car, they find her cell phone and wallet, really just out in the open, visible from the window. In Carnell's SUV, they find his personal cell phone, work phone, and wallet, again in plain view. So while I guess a robbery gone wrong could have been possible, maybe somebody came up behind them, asked for their wallets, and because they didn't have them, they were shot. Maybe the person ran away without even checking their vehicles. It just doesn't seem likely to investigators. They also can't really determine how the murderer got away. Let's talk about this specific area of the park for a second, because the area and how many people were in the park that day makes this case just even more odd. They were killed just north of the Lorraine Bridge on Valley Parkway. This is considered to be a heavily trafficked area, especially because locals are known to use this road to avoid the highway. And they were killed shortly after 5 p.m. on a Tuesday, so I think it's safe to assume that this would be the peak time for people to be rerouting to this road. And traffic detours aside, on the day that they were killed, the weather was nice and there were many people in the area. There were people walking, jogging, biking, and just hanging out. So again, trying to figure out how this person got away, especially without anyone noticing anything weird, feels incredibly important. This entire area is basically forested. There are trees everywhere. After the trees to the north, there's a residential neighborhood. To the east, they'd have to cross the Rocky River, which is pretty deep, 150 feet in some areas. So that way does feel least likely to me. But that is just speculation. I mean, this is an area where people brought their kayaks. For all we know, they had a kayak, got out, shot them, got back in, and escaped down the river. Now, the south and west are kind of like the same situation. This person could have hidden the trees and then taken smaller roads to reach larger areas that are basically a mix of homes and commercial businesses. Like I said, it's basically this pocket of trees, but there's also countless roads and trails that could have taken the shooter almost anywhere. Now, you might be asking the same question I was when I got to this point in researching the case. If this happened in broad daylight with a ton of people in the area, surely someone had to have seen or heard something, right? The answer is kind of. There's a person they're calling a pseudo-witness and possible person of interest. This episode of Voices for Justice is brought to you by Quince. I've been trying to be more intentional about what I wear each day. I'm leaning into pieces that feel effortless, comfortable, and still put together, and Quince has been my go-to. The fabrics feel elevated, the fits are flattering, and everything just works without overthinking it. They use premium materials like 100% European linen, organic cotton, and ultra-soft denim. And the best part? Everything is priced 50 to 80% less than similar brands. They work directly with ethical factories and cut out the middlemen, so you're paying for quality and craftsmanship, not brand markup. I recently just ordered their tiered linen dress, of course in black. I wanted to pair it with one of my favorite pairs of brown wedges. The problem was, I didn't have a brown purse. So I got that from Quince too. It's one of my favorite outfits. It's easy, effortless, and feels amazing, especially as we're getting a little bit warmer here in Phoenix. Refresh your everyday with luxury you'll actually use. Head to quince.com/justice for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. Now available in Canada too. That's QUINCE.com/justice for free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/justice. This episode of Voices for Justice is sponsored by Chewy. If you have pets, you probably know about Chewy, and you also know that when they say that they have everything you need to keep your pet happy and healthy, they're not messing around. To keep them happy, Chewy has over 100,000 products from all the brands my pets love at prices I love. To keep them healthy, Chewy offers pet prescriptions, pet insurance, telehealth vet visits, and they're even rolling out vet clinics across the country. I've been shopping with them for a very long time. And in addition to the auto-ship feature that gets the dog's food to them every single month, I also love to experiment with different treats. But I'm a bit picky. For me, it has to be high quality with simple ingredients. I recently picked up treats from Shepherd Boy Farms that are 100% just chicken breast. Popcorn and Heber are already obsessed. Chewy has everything you need to keep your pet happy and healthy. And right now, you can save $20 on your first order and get free shipping by going to chewpanions.chewy.com/Sarah E. Turney. That's chewpanions.chewy.com/Sarah E. Turney to save $20 on your first order with free shipping. chewpanions.chewy.com/Sarah E. Turney. Minimum purchase required. New customers only. Terms and conditions apply. See site for complete details. According to statements made by Cleveland Metro Parks Police Chief Kelly Stillman to 19 News, there was a man that they are not naming, a roofer, who was parked 50 yards away from Kate and Carnell when they were murdered. But when he interviews with police, he said that he didn't hear or see anything. Which definitely feels odd. I mean, even if you had headphones on or you were distracted, you'd think someone about 150 feet away from 3 gunshots would hear it. But to play devil's advocate, maybe the gun had a silencer. Of course, there are ways to detect the use of a silencer in these crimes, but as far as I could find in my research, that was not the case. Or if it was, they are not telling the public that. I mean, maybe this guy just didn't want to get involved. Really, it feels like anyone's guess at this point. But this is what gets me about this pseudo-witness, as they're calling him. He lived right across the street from Kate when this happened. Now, it's unclear if they knew each other or had any type of relationship. But of course, for all the reasons I just told you, this guy is on the radar of investigators. He's been questioned multiple times, but in the end, he has not been formally named a suspect and hasn't been charged with any crime. In that same interview, the chief is asked if the man is local, and he says he's not sure. Just that at the time of the murders, he lived across the street from Kate, so it appears that he may have moved since the murders. However, the chief did also confirm that they're still keeping an eye on this man. So take all of that for what you will. Of course, their families and investigators want to know why someone would do something like this. What was the motive for such a public killing that could have easily got someone caught? So let's talk about Kate and Carnell. Kate was born on October 12, 1985. She graduated from Olmsted Falls High School in Ohio in 2004. She attended both Bowling Green State University and Cleveland State University in Ohio. She liked doing yoga, playing volleyball, and snuggling with her rescue cat, Kip. She was also extremely close to her family. Her sister Alex says that Kate was her best friend. When she was killed, Kate's family says that she was really at the highest point of her life. She was 2 years sober, had lost over 100 pounds, and was successful in her role as a marketing associate for a jewelry company. In their interviews with Unsolved Mysteries, her family says that she was vibrant and happy at this point in her life. Now let's talk about Carnell. He was born in Bedford, Ohio on April 3, 1979. He's been described as a fun-loving, amazing, and family-oriented person. His loved ones called him Nell, and his father says that he was just a good kid. He was a big sports fan and especially loved the Guardians, Browns, and Cavaliers. While he worked as an audiovisual technician, he also created a foundation called Sledge's Helping Hands, an organization dedicated to funding enrichment programs for underprivileged children. Carnell himself was even a basketball coach. Despite Carnell being 6'4" and weighing 220 pounds, his younger brother Terrence says that he was just a big teddy bear. Really, he was his idol. Kate and Carnell had been friends for over a decade, and while no one is perfect, they both seemed like pretty amazing people. So investigators go through the crime scene, they speak to this pseudo-witness, and they learn all that they can about Kate and Carnell. But of course, while all of this is happening, they're also pulling records and surveillance to piece together the best timeline they can. So let's go through it. On the day of the murders, again that's Tuesday, June 4th, 2019, Kate gets home from work and signs into the gym at her apartment complex at 3:38 p.m. Carnell texts Kate at 4:02 p.m. asking if she wanted to meet up. Kate calls Carnell to discuss their plans. Now, of course, because this was a call and not a text, one of the biggest questions that still remains in this case is why did they meet up? Was it a casual hangout? Was there something serious they needed to talk about? Unfortunately, we just don't know. But according to some sources, it was not odd for them to meet up, specifically at this park. So you know what I'm going to say? Take that for what you will. Either way, this call lasts for about 10 minutes. Carnell leaves work at 4:24 p.m. Kate signs out of the gym 7 minutes later at 4:31 p.m. At 5:01 p.m., Kate's car is seen on video, captured by a police officer's dash cam on the parkway. She was headed towards the area of the bench they were later found by. As a side note, because I was curious why this officer was there, it looks like they were just running radar, not responding to any particular call or scene. But 2 minutes later, at 5:03 p.m., Carnell's SUV is captured by the same camera. Detectives estimate that they would have made it to this area with the bench just 2 minutes later at 5:05 p.m. At 5:08 p.m., Kate unlocks and checks her phone. 14 minutes later, at 5:22 p.m., the phone call is made to 911. Now, when Carnell's family hears about the timeline of events, they're pretty shocked and confused, because he had plans that day to have dinner at his grandma's house at 5 p.m., the exact time he was in the park with Kate. According to reporting by Fox 8 News, Carnell was the one who actually arranged this dinner for this time. His mom, Darlene Sledge, said that his grandmother began texting him when he was late. She asked if he was on his way. Then she said the food was getting cold. Then she asked him to call her. Obviously, they were immediately concerned, and just ditching his family like this was completely out of character. And it's not like the park was on the way to his grandmother's house. He drove out of his way to meet up with Kate. So one theory is that Kate and Carnell met up to discuss something very serious, something that had to be discussed in person versus over the phone. But that is just a theory that has not been proven or disproven. Now let's talk about what would have motivated somebody to do this. Let's go through who they interviewed. At this point, really everyone was considered to be a possible suspect. We already talked about the pseudo-witness roofer. Like I said, he is still on their radar, but has essentially been cleared for now. Investigators also spoke with Carnell's ex-girlfriend, Alyssa Miller. Now, she actually interviewed for the Unsolved Mysteries episode. She says she began talking to Carnell about a year before he was killed. They dated for about 6 months before deciding that they were just better off as friends. But about a month before he was killed, she said that changed. They'd reconnected and were going to get back together. However, it has been reported that Kate and Carnell may have explored the idea of being together romantically. So that part is largely unclear. But Alyssa said that she saw him the Saturday before the murders and texted with him the day of the murders. She says the last text she got from him was at about 3 p.m. She'd had a rough day, and he was asking her how she was doing. But she says that she didn't text him back until later that evening and never heard back. Now, it seems like a combination of things that got Alyssa onto the radar of investigators. Outside of jealousy being a possible motive, witnesses state that her emotions at Carnell's funeral were just really over the top and abnormal. She was also a registered gun owner. So investigators pursue the lead. They talk to Alyssa and discover that her alibi was solid. She was at work. She also gave her gun over for testing, and they were able to conclude that it was not used in the murders. Now, as a side note, Kate's family said that they only learned that Alyssa's gun was ruled out as the murder weapon while watching the Unsolved Mysteries episode. But either way, Alyssa was ruled out. Investigators were also looking into a possible love interest of Kate's. She was on the dating app Tinder and had gone on some dates before the murders. But investigators focused on one of these dates in particular. They have not named this man, but the Friday before the murders, Kate and this man went out for a date. And it did not go well, to say the least. She described this man as having a dark, sinister energy. She said that his eyes were black, and he made her feel unsafe because he told this insane story while on the date. Kate said that he just casually mentioned that he and his brother had stabbed someone and lit them on fire. But needless to say, Kate did not go on another date with this man or keep in contact with him. But for obvious reasons, investigators wanted to speak with him. He was investigated and later ruled out. Police say that they were able to track his cell phone to southern Ohio at the time of the murders. Now, they also looked at another love interest of Kate's, an ex-boyfriend whom she'd been seeing in secret. Like many men in this case, he is also not being named. But Kate's sister Lauren told the Daily Mail that she thinks Kate kept this a secret because her family had concerns about how he treated her. She says pretty bluntly that when Kate mentioned seeing him, they confronted her directly, saying he was not a good person and she wasn't making good choices by seeing him. And they were pretty shocked to find out that he was with Kate the night before the murders. He was seen being buzzed into her building, and on June 5th, the day after the murders, he called investigators to tell them that he was with her. Now, Lauren says that they were so upset and really scared by this that they asked him to not attend the funeral. And according to Lauren, when a mutual friend relayed this information to him, they noticed a handgun on his table. Lauren says that this was reported to investigators, but if anything came of it, she has not been informed. She believes that either Kate or Carnell were followed into the park that day. She said, quote, "In my gut, I feel like it was targeted, because the person had a 14-minute window to get in and get out unseen. Nobody heard anything. Nobody saw anything. I think that one of them was followed. I always have, whether it's Kate or Carnell." End quote. Investigators have also considered the theory that this ex-boyfriend followed Kate to the park and then killed her and Carnell. But like everybody else, they say that he has an alibi. He was at the barber shop while the murders were happening. This was apparently corroborated by another witness. At this point, so early on, investigators were really at a standstill.
Insurance isn't one size fits all. That's why customers have enjoyed Progressive's Name Your Price tool for years now. With the Name Your Price tool, you tell them what you want to pay, and they'll show you options that fit your budget. So whether you're picking out your first policy or just looking for something that works better for you and your family, they make it easy to see your options. Visit Progressive.com. Find a rate that works for you with the Name Your Price tool. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law.
What they did to your family, you're lucky to make it out alive.
Streaming on Peacock.
These men are going to come after me. Taking them out is my only chance.
Put a bullet in her head.
From the co-creator of Ozark.
Looks like a family was running drugs.
Execution-style killing, it's rare for the Keys. Any leads on who they might have been running for?
The cartel killed my family. I'm gonna kill them. All of them.
MIA. Streaming now. Only on Peacock.
Now, just a few weeks after Kate and Carnell were killed, there were 2 other gun-related incidents in the park. A woman was robbed at gunpoint by 2 men from behind. She said both men were wearing gloves and one had a ski mask on. The very next day, a park worker and his mother were in the area when a driver flagged them down in their vehicle. When they stopped, they saw a man in the passenger seat with a silver object they believed was a pistol in the upright position. So this park worker and his mom sped away and reported it to police. The Metro Parks police initially said that these events were concerning and that it could be relevant to Kate and Carnell's case. They even placed more officers in the park during this time, all the way through Labor Day. However, a spokesperson later said that they were not able to make any connection between these incidents and the murders. Throughout 2019, the local police and the FBI conducted a series of press conferences to speak about the case, and the Cleveland Metro Parks Police made it very clear that they felt their murders were an isolated incident, and that they were not concerned about the safety of their parks. A spokesperson for the FBI said that they had no reason to believe that their murder was done at random, but also didn't confirm that they were specifically targeted, and added that they were looking at all avenues. They assured the public that this was something they were working on daily, and largely refused to answer questions or provide more information. Then, something very unexpected fell into investigators' laps. Well, actually, it was given to the local Fox 8 news station at first. It was an anonymous letter from someone claiming to have information about the murders. The author said that the shooter was a woman, and that she'd spoken with Carnell before shooting him and Kate. Now, this letter has never been released in full. There's really only been like a few screenshots of this letter in some newscasts. But apparently, it went into quite a bit of detail about what this woman looked like and what happened. When the news station got this letter, they didn't tell the public. They just immediately turned it over to the FBI. It wasn't until 2021, when the FBI went back to Fox 8 News for help identifying the author, that all of this was revealed. At that time, Carnell's mom was interviewed, and she said that her family's hearts just dropped. She got chills and just cried. But they found the author, and it turns out that the letter wasn't actually an eyewitness account, but apparently a vision that this person claimed to have had. It's now largely considered to be a hoax. And honestly, I cannot express enough how tired I am of researching these cases and finding hoaxes like this. Hoaxes that put these families through even more emotional turmoil than they've already been through. Having a vision and wanting to tell the police about it is one thing, but writing an anonymous letter like this, wasting resources, and putting this family through this is just downright cruel. Both of these families had already been through so much. In fact, Carnell's cousin, 23-year-old Devon Gibson, was one of 3 people who were shot and killed during a New Year's Eve party just months before Carnell and Kate were murdered. The gunman was later suspected to be 24-year-old Tevin Biles Thomas. According to reporting by People, he was later tracked down at Fort Stewart in Georgia, where he was an active-duty U.S. Army service member. He was later charged with murder, voluntary manslaughter, assault, and perjury. His first trial resulted in a mistrial, after jurors read paperwork that included evidence meant to be precluded from the proceedings. So they had to do it all over again. And in June 2021, just days after the 2-year anniversary of Carnell's murder, a judge dismissed the charges, stating that the prosecutors did not present evidence to sustain a conviction. Apparently, they weren't able to find any physical evidence linking Biles Thomas to the crime. Just moments after the judge read the ruling, Devon's mother charged at Biles Thomas, screaming, "You killed my baby." She was tackled by officers before reaching the defendant. It's so much heartbreak and so much tragedy for just one family. But Devon's family, Carnell's family, want him and Carnell to be known for more than just being murder victims. Devon worked as a barber and attended college, where he was earning a 4.0 GPA. They say he was a young man with many dreams, including, like Carnell, to make his community a better place. They've since started a foundation and scholarship fund in his name, which I will link in the episode description. Carnell's family has also taken over operations at his foundation, Sledge's Helping Hands, to continue his mission to help his community. I will of course have a link to that as well if you want to learn more, or if you can, to donate. Over the years, both Carnell and Kate's families have kept themselves in the public eye to discuss the case, and to keep people talking about it, so that hopefully people will keep submitting tips. While the reward for information was up to $30,000, Kate's family has donated another $70,000 to bump it up to a staggering $100,000. But when they put up signs in the park advertising this new reward, they were ordered by the police to take them down. They often express their frustration about the lack of communication from law enforcement about the case. Like I told you earlier, they only found out that Carnell's ex-girlfriend was ruled out through watching Unsolved Mysteries, which is just unacceptable. Without going into specifics, they also hinted that they learned even more from that episode. Now, I also want to discuss some more recent statements about what's happening in the investigation. According to statements made by Kate's father, Tom Brown, to WKYC News in a segment about the Unsolved Mysteries episode, he revealed that the VDOC Society offered to review the case at their request. This is a completely free service, and at first, according to Tom, investigators agreed to this and set up a meeting. But he says that the day before that meeting was to take place, the chief of police called it off, and he doesn't know why. But not long after Tom made those statements, Chief Kelly Stillman did an extensive interview with 19 News, and he said that they did meet with the VDOC Society, and that they said their department had done everything they possibly could, and that they wouldn't have changed a single thing in their investigation.
I wish it was an overnight process, but it's not. It's a lot of work.
Okay. And when you
we've done everything. We recently went to VIDOC, which was a consortium of all the greatest scientific minds in crime solving in Philadelphia, I believe was location. And I can tell you categorically, that committee said that we have done everything that we can possibly do. And they would have not done, they would have done nothing different in their investigatory process of what we did. So we're spot on. We went to the best of the best.
They are among the best of the best. Did they find any leads, or did they go in a different direction?
We gave them everything we had, and they said, "You've done everything you can do. You're spot on." I mean, so we've done everything we can do.
Have you talked to the family lately?
I have not. I see them on the news. I'm sure they see us on the news. I'd love to talk to the family with one important phone call, and you know what that would be, that we know who did it, and we're going to go arrest them. So that's really the most important phone call I can give them.
Kate's family told the Daily Mail that they essentially do not have a relationship with the police at this point, and all the communication that does happen is on their end. They say that it's frustrating, but they continue to communicate and submit any tips that come their way. Like we've seen in other cases, there's also been quite a bit of public feuding between Kate's family and the police through a variety of statements. In that same article, Cleveland Metro Parks Director of Communications, Jacqueline Gerling, said outright that that wasn't true. Quote, "For the Brown family to say communication isn't happening simply because they aren't receiving the news they want is an unfair characterization of our efforts." End quote. To which I would say, then maybe tell these families the same information you're telling the producers at Netflix. Then maybe you won't feel compelled to defend yourselves to an outlet like the Daily Mail. If you're telling millions of people who tune into unsolved mysteries, I fail to see the harm that would be caused by directly telling the family, even if not just a little heads up before the episode airs. But that is just my opinion. More importantly, Carnell's brother Terrence has also expressed frustrations with the police, and he does believe that the ball was dropped in this case. But of course, they do still all hold out hope that this case will be solved. In terms of progress on this case, the next development came fairly recently in May 2025, when a murder-suicide ended in the same park that Carnell and Kate were killed in. On May 14, 2025, 66-year-old Brian Hurt shot and killed his neighbor, 68-year-old Thomas Overall, while he was mowing his lawn. Hurt was later found deceased in a vehicle at the Cleveland Metro Park's Groff Memorial and Scenic Outlook. He died by suicide. Now, according to reporting by WKYC News, Hurt did have a long history of run-ins with the police and violence. In 2010, he was convicted on charges related to an incident in which he released his dog and encouraged it to attack someone working for the U.S. Census. 2 months after that, he was arrested after he followed a family. A man, a woman, and their 2 kids pulled up next to them and pointed a gun at them. When he went to court for those charges, he lunged at the bailiff and tried to grab his gun after the terms of his bond had changed. He was sentenced to 5 years in prison for that incident in 2011. According to reporting by Fox 8 News, they found even more troubling reports related to Hurt. In one report, he threatened a bank call center, saying, "How about I load my gun and come down to your branch?" He also called the police to complain about kids riding their bikes on his lawn, and said he had a bat and was waiting for them. Now, as far as I can tell, if there is a connection between Hurt and Kate and Carnell's murder, the police aren't saying it. And there has been some conflicting reporting about how serious the police are looking into there being any type of possible connection. And that's basically where the case is today. So what happened to Kate Brown and Carnell Sledge? Well, the theories are seemingly endless, and investigators say that they're still keeping their minds open to basically everything, including people they've talked to in the past. Now, we've discussed the people close to Kate and Carnell, so let's talk about the other possibilities here. One theory is that this was a crime motivated by hate. Carnell was black and Kate was white. Did seeing them together on that bench upset someone? Well, Tim Brown says that he was told by investigators that there are over 30 hate groups based in that area. But they also say that there's no evidence pointing in that direction, just as there's no evidence to say that this was just a random act of violence or a planned one. I mean, it really seems that this case, for all the information we have, just hasn't moved much investigation-wise. But I'm also sure that they aren't telling us or Kate and Carnell's families everything they have. If they have footage of both of them driving to the area where they were killed, surely they have footage of other people going to the area as well. I mean, in some of the dashcam footage from that day, there are other people walking, people on bikes. I have to imagine that the amount of video surveillance they have or could sift through is just immense. And I have to imagine that if Carnell was shot at such a close range twice, whoever did this may have had some type of blood on them. I mean, it's always possible that they didn't, but there just has to be something here that could lead them to solving this case. Whoever did this only had 14 minutes to commit these murders. And it does appear that the perpetrator may have left trace DNA at the scene. According to statements made by Chief Kelly Stillman to 19 News, certain items at the scene have been sent off for testing, but nothing definitive has come back. And while he alluded to this potentially being perpetrator DNA, neither he nor his department has said this outright. We don't even know what was sent off for testing. But Chief Stillman did say that the testing could potentially lead them to a suspect. So again, take that for what you will. In the end, this case is still unsolved. And there are two families and countless friends and loved ones mourning the immense loss of Kate Brown and Carnell Sledge. Kate's sister Alex said that they were best friends, and she still calls Kate's phone and leaves her voicemails. In addition to being a daughter and a sister, Kate was also a very proud aunt who was very active in her family's lives. Carnell, of course, was also very loved and is now very missed. I mean, watching his younger brother talk about the hole that this has left in his life was absolutely devastating. In addition to being such a pivotal part of his family, he's also dearly missed by his community, especially all the kids he coached basketball for and all the kids he helped with his foundation. But both families have expressed their wishes to keep this case in the public eye. Really, the need to keep this case in the public eye. Which brings me right to our call to action. Of course, please share this case. I still hold out hope that someone saw or heard something in the park that day and just hasn't come forward. It just feels so unlikely that there's not a single witness in this case. Your share really could lead to a tangible tip being submitted. Crazier things have happened in true crime. I also want to again remind you that in addition to sharing the case, there are two foundations created by Carnell and his family that you can support and donate to. Sledge's Helping Hands and the Barbara Gibbs Dreams Foundation, both of which are linked in this episode's description. As a reminder, Kate Brown and Carnell Sledge were shot and killed at the Rocky River Reservation in Fairview Park, Ohio on June 4th, 2019. Kate was 33 years old, and Carnell was 40 years old. As of recording this episode, their case remains unsolved. Anyone with information is asked to call the FBI Cleveland Field Office at 216-622-6842. The Cleveland Metro Parks Police Department at 440-331-5219, or Crime Stoppers at 216-252-7463. Tips can also be submitted online at tips.fbi.gov. But as always, thank you, I love you, and I'll talk to you next time. Voices for Justice is hosted and produced by me, Sarah Turney, and is a Voices for Justice media original. If you love what we do here, please don't forget to follow, rate, and review the show in your podcast player. It's an easy and completely free way to help us and help more people find these cases in need of justice. Welcome to the Secret After Show. The studio door is open and our emotional support puppies, Popcorn and Heber, are in the room. Now, I do have to do my obligatory Patreon plug here. I actually dropped an episode that I, loved researching. I really like talking about scams and scandals. Of course, in addition to raising awareness for these cases, I love that too. But I feel like I get to be sassier. And, when I talk about these scams and scandals, it's just not, of course, they're terrible most of the time, just terrible people doing terrible things, but it's certainly not as heavy as what I talk about here. So I feel like it's just a different vibe. I get really sassy, but anyway, this time I dropped Dark Truth of basically the Fire Festival insanity. And not just Fire Festival 1, right? I feel like that's so played out. Everybody's talked about that forever. It's kind of old news right now. Very important, I still feel, but old news. What really piqued my interest was how Billy McFarland was going on to create Fire Festival 2, selling the Firefest brand. And there were even these crazy statements about, this alleged meeting with Elon Musk about holding a Firefest in space. I literally can't even. I can't even with these scammers. So again, over on my Patreon, if you are so compelled, I do a series over there called Dark Truth, where I talk about things like that, scams, scandals, and general things that are kind of icky, and I think fall under that justice umbrella. But enough about Patreon, let's move on to the case. The first thing I have on my list is probably no surprise to any of you. It's about learning new facts from the media. I said a lot in the episode already, and I don't know, tell me if you guys like that, tell me if you don't, tell me if you think all that should be in the after show. I feel like sometimes just inserting a little bit of opinion and then getting back to the case is appropriate, but let me know what you think. Of course, I just feel like this is such a bad thing to do, right? Not just because they're not telling the family and that's mean, but really if law enforcement and families want to foster a positive relationship, things like this have to stop happening. It's one thing to keep this private information away from the public altogether, but to tell Netflix unsolved mysteries, to tell millions of people this information and not the family, you're just breeding upset there. You really are. And there's really no good excuse for it. Like I said, even if they didn't want them to know, who knows when this was shot, right? It could have been shot a year in advance or something. So even if they didn't want them to know that early in advance, even just hey, I know the episode's coming out, just so you know, this is what we talked about. I don't want it to be a shock when you see it on TV. I think small gestures like that would go a really long way. And then, potentially avoid having this very public feud between these families, where the family is upset, honestly, rightfully so, about these things. And then the police department has to come out and, say negative things against the family. In the end, it just doesn't help the case. And I think that these things are easily avoided. But yeah, of course, it also just pisses me off. I've been that family. I have been the person who learns new things from programs, and it just is a really crappy feeling, and it makes you just not really trust police. You're what else are they telling the media that they're not telling me? And again, why is it okay for the whole world to know, but not for me to know? It just sucks. As far as media discrepancies, there weren't a ton. Yay, I love it when that happens. There was some confusing reporting about which city this all happened in. And maybe it's just confusing because I'm not local to that area. So I essentially just went with what all the authorities were saying. I feel like it's not that relevant, but it's little things like that just, it's something I'll get stuck on for 30 minutes trying to track down okay, well, this news outlet is saying it's Cleveland, this news outlet is saying it's a different city, and they're so close to each other, it's just one of those things. Now, another discrepancy that I did see was how much police believe that this might be Hurt, this gentleman that enters this case very much at the end. It was drama, to be honest. There was one news station that essentially shamed the other one for talking about Hurt possibly being involved. It was really, really intense. The guy was and that news reporter, not from our station. It was, like I said, it was drama. I don't know what's happening in Ohio, you guys. I really don't. Now, I do want to give a shout out to the Unsolved Mysteries episode. We're kind of on a roll. There's been a few episodes that I've reviewed for cases lately where I felt like they just did a really good job. And this episode in particular, I really, really liked because I felt like they spent a very good amount of time just allowing their families to talk about it. Like, who these people were, what they meant to them. There was so much time spent on Kate and Carnell and really like hooking the viewer and making sure that you care about them. Like I talked about, I had to mention the scene of Terrence, Carnell's little brother, where he's talking. Oh, you guys, it was so sad. You could just tell, and he's like sitting there and the tears are just welling up. And it was just like, it's one of those moments where, like, yes, do I feel in a sense that all true crime is exploitative or yes, I do. It's just the nature of what it is. You are taking a story, a tragic story, and you are turning it around and making a profit off of it. That is exploitation. But again, what I try to do in this podcast, what I try to foster in true crime is how do we take that initial concept that is so popular that will never go away and steer it in a better direction. And I think that's exactly what this episode did. Like, you don't always or very often even see that. A lot of the times it's almost like these, I don't know exactly how to say it, but it's just these like very stark shots of people crying without the backstory to it. I don't know. I guess I feel like in some of my interviews, like I just see like shots of me crying and they don't really talk about like what led up to it. And it just feels like gross. And in this case, it was like, I felt like Terrence, was telling this story and it was very natural and it just like made you feel for these families. So again, shout out to Unsolved Mysteries, shout out to Netflix. I think that it was extremely well done. Let's go on to the hero of this episode, and it might be a little shocking. I chose the Fox 8 News team, and that was for submitting the anonymous letter to the FBI instead of going public with it right away. I think that was an incredible act of integrity. They got this letter, and they didn't talk about it for years until the FBI came back to them and asked them to talk about it. It just feels like a rare moment in news media, especially true crime news media. Oftentimes what I feel like you see in these cases are so many people like chomping at the bit for new information to be the first one to report that new information. I mean, they had something huge that they could have gotten a lot of clicks on. They could have made a lot of money by talking about that. But in my opinion, they did the right thing. They shut their mouths, they gave it to the authorities, and they waited for their instruction. So unfortunately, I don't know whoever that soul was that made that decision at Fox 8 News, but our hero of the episode is that station as a whole for that reason. Now let's go on to our segment of hope. I feel like I actually know this one off the top of my head, but I did pull an article just so I can reference it. And, to be honest, it's not exactly true crime related, but it's like a tragedy was avoided, and it's a feel-good story that I really, really wanted to bring to you guys. I am reading from USA Today. This was written by Eve Chen and Nathan Diller, and the title reads, "Girl Who Went Overboard on Disney Cruise Fell Backward Through a Porthole." Now, if you guys are on social media, you've probably seen this. I know that I've been seeing it absolutely everywhere, and every time it makes me so emotional. But essentially what happened was, this family is on this Disney cruise, and the girl, a 5-year-old girl, loses her balance, and she falls, I guess, backward through a porthole. That is news to me. And she falls overboard. And what ends up happening is her dad jumps in after her. Okay, I'm going to try to keep it together, you guys. It says, quote, "After the girl's mother alerted her husband, who didn't see the incident, he jumped into the ocean to save his daughter," end quote. Sorry, quote again. BSO detectives said that after the 37-year-old father found his daughter, he treaded water until they were rescued by a tender that was launched from the ship, end quote. So the girl falls in, dad jumps in after her, and they tread water for 20 minutes, which seems like a short amount of time, but that's a long time to be basically in the middle of the ocean, not only lifting yourself up, but lifting up a 5-year-old kid, which, they can weigh, up to 50 pounds. Okay, I guess that's like a big 5-year-old. I just looked it up, but also, you know what I mean. Some 5-year-olds are big. All 5-year-olds are heavy when you're treading the ocean, okay? I don't know. I just think it's like really amazing that the dad jumped in knowing that like he could die. I mean, that is a extremely dire situation. And in that moment, like in a split second, he decided that like his daughter wasn't going to die alone. You know, if anything, they were going to die together. It's just like so amazing. And really just like it feels like one of those, I was about to say cases, but one of those stories where these people beat all odds. That is such a scary and dangerous situation. And the Disney crew has been widely praised for their fast response and, of course, finding them within 20 minutes, which again is not easy to do. But they both survived, they were found, and they appear to be fine. So that's why it makes our segment of hope. As always, thank you, I love you, and I'll talk to you next time.